Welcome to Coast Vue, or welcome back to Coast Vue. I really enjoyed that conversation with my friend Jeff Duncan. It's as a Saints fan, it's been a sad way to end the season because I really believed they were going to win that game last Monday, and then go on a roll, but it didn't happen. But I'll still watch the games and enjoy watching them. And if you're not an NBA fan, and I'm not really, to be quite honest with you, but because I spent some time in New Orleans and had a good relationship with the Saints and Pelicans organization when I was president of NOLA Media Group, I pay a lot more pay closer attention to the Pelicans because of that. And the whole notion around hoping that they would be able to get Zion, and then they signed a contract to him and some of these younger players, and a great general manager and a terrific coach. And they're 5-game winning streak. It's really cool to be able to watch the Pelicans now, and that gives us for the region, it gives us a winning team to be for. Hey, I came across a quote this morning when I was reading one of my newsletters, and I think it kind of fits the theme of Coast Vue of the last several days. It seems like no matter who I've had on the show for a conversation, the conversation always moves back to some aspect of giving back to the community. Community needs, giving back to the community. And this was a quote from John Glenn. And it was really on the anniversary of his death in 2016, the former astronaut and senator, that this was posted. And the quote was this: "We are more fulfilled when we are involved in something bigger than ourselves." Now, in his case, obviously being a senator, being an astronaut, that is true. But you know what? If you go back and think about the conversations we've had here on Coast Vue, so many of our guests feel the same way, that they are more fulfilled when they are involved in something bigger than themselves. That defines so many coastal Mississippians. Did you know that 1 in 4 women in the U.S. and about 1 in 12 men are subject to domestic violence, and during their lifetime? This time of year is a time when we might see an uptick in domestic violence. When you think about sexual assault, which is typically a crime of power and control, every 2 minutes someone is raped. Think about that for a minute. Every 2 minutes someone is raped. Sexual assault can affect men, women, and children, and we've had some focus on the need to care for people who've been in situations like that. In the U.S., the loss of a loved one, as it relates to murder, happens to at least 60 families a day. Think about that for a minute. You hear what you hear on the news, but 60 families a day have to deal with murder. I'm really pleased over the last 3 years that I've had this terrific relationship with the Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence, and I want to invite my friend Stacey Riley into the conversation. And just first of all, say good morning to her. How you doing, Stacey? Listen, I love what you guys do for the community. I've obviously been aware of it for many years as a publisher. We always work to support your efforts. And, of course, in this new sort of incarnation of my life with Coast Vue, we've tried to bring as much attention to your efforts. But, serving victims of domestic violence and sexual assault and survivors of homicide, educating the community, and working hard to sort of reduce the incidents involved in all those 3 categories and more. Unfortunately, you have a lot to say grace over. But we're fortunate in this community to have you and the people that surround you doing what you do every day, because there's certainly a need, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I hate to even be here and say that I have a position working in our community as a director of an agency that provides these services. But the reality of it is, like you said, domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking and homicide are real things that happen in our community. And there needs to be a place like ours that people can come to for help.
No doubt. I've said this before, and of course, you and I spent an entire show together talking about human trafficking. And, when they think about human trafficking, they, as you and I discussed back then, they tend to think about it as being in a faraway land, not in your neighborhood. So, oftentimes, unfortunately, it could be someone in your neighbor that's putting a young person or a family member out there in some sort of sexual trafficking situation. It's sad that you see it, but that's, unfortunately, that's one of the byproducts of the human condition. And we have to have an organization like yours to to respond to it when you have a situation like that, because these young people, a lot of times it is young people, but it's not, a lot of times it's not. They have significant needs, don't they?
Absolutely. You're looking at people who have experienced trauma by people that were supposed to love them, and this is family members, this is husbands, this is partners. And in the reality of human trafficking in our state here, majority of trafficking is done by family members. I mean, these are not the people who pull up in a white van and snatch people in Walmart parking lot. These are people that are loved ones, or supposed to be loved ones of individuals, and that they sell them repeatedly. So it's never a positive conversation to have, but it's the reality of what we deal with. But there is help and there's hope, and that's what we try to sell here.
There are a lot of reasons for it. I'm curious though, how often does some type of dependency, drug or alcohol, play into the scenarios of all areas that you have to deal with?
It is a large number of people that we serve that have had some experiences, or currently have some experiences with substance abuse, because we know that trauma is the gateway drug. It's not, marijuana, it is trauma. And a lot of people we serve have dealt with trauma for their lifetime, and in efforts to medicate the pain away and forget everything that's happened. It happens a lot with getting into the world of alcohol and drugs. And then you have two things you're dealing with. You're dealing with, the impacts of trauma, and then you're dealing with having to try to get off drugs, which has been the way that you have dealt with the trauma in your lifetime. So a huge correlation.
Stacey, let's do this. This is Stacey Riley, the Chief Executive Officer for the Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence. Why don't we do this? Let's take a step back for a second and give people a sense of your mission, what it takes to serve that mission, how many people you're currently serving, where you're located. Let's get some of those details out of the way.
Okay. So like you mentioned our mission statement a few minutes ago, that's what we are. We are the agency here on the Gulf Coast, and we serve the lower 6 counties. And we provide services, an array of services for anyone, male, female, adult, child, whatever the circumstances are, who have been affected by domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, and homicide. And those are the big 4 of interpersonal violence things that can happen to someone. So what we do as an agency, and we've been around for over 45 years, is to define and create services that are comprehensive to fully address the overall impact of what people have dealt with in these arenas. So shelter is one of those things we do, and that's what people know us as, is the battered women's shelter. But I always say we are so much more than that. Our shelters that we have, one in Biloxi and one in Pascagoula, are just are there to provide that safe space, but also have a variety of services attached to those things. We have therapists and master's level therapists who are trauma informed, that help them to navigate their recovery. We have non-residential services. So if you have been affected by any of those victimization types, you don't have to come to shelter. You come for help with us, with the counselor. We have housing programs that are addressed. Because if I leave my abusive partner and I don't have a place to go after that, then we help people get into a place to live. And we help them with the financial obligations with that. Right now, we have about 40 families living in homes in the Gulf Coast community that we're paying all their living expenses on. So again, looking at the ways that we can fully address, like in 2021, we served over 3,000 unique individuals across all programs that are able to provide those comprehensive services. And with both shelters, we serve about 600 people a year in shelter. That's a lot, but it's not everyone. We know that 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 statistics, there's a lot more people in our community here who could use our help. And that's what our goal is to get the information out in any way possible to reach people, to say that this is what we can do to help you, and you don't have to do this by yourself.
Hey, so Stacey, where does the majority of your funding come from?
Majority of funding is grants. We get federal grants, we get state grants. We receive money from both United Ways here on the coast, foundations, and we are fully reliant on donations from the community, because the grants don't pay for everything. We need to fill in the blanks to keep the lights on.
And that's what That's why I admire people who run nonprofits in coastal Mississippi. You can't just focus on the mission. You have to, it's a nonprofit, but it's a business. You have expenses, You need to have revenue coming in the form of grants and other donations. And and you have a growing number of people who need your services. So there's never any rest for the weary in your world, is there?
No, not at all. We have 48 staff members here who are, beating the streets every day to help people, and there's never a lull time. It's always something going on. And that's just what we do. I mean, we have a committed group of folks here who say that, let me do what I can do to help you and make life better.
Well, one of the things that you and I have discussed before, and I think it's important to sort of point out now, is that a lot of what you might deal with, I would say a tremendous large number of the cases you might deal with are a situation where law enforcement sort of alerts you. And that relationship that you have, the Center for Nonviolence has with the law enforcement community, is vital, isn't it?
Absolutely, because they're the first responders. They're the ones who are getting out to the homes where the cases are being, where the domestic violence incident occurred. And they are also the ones who are, their first point of contact, the first person that shows up and talks to the victim. And they give them our information when they go out to these calls. And, we are, focused on getting involved as quickly as possible and as soon in the situation as possible.
If they don't call you guys, who do they call?
They go to their pastors, they go to their friends, they go to other people who listen, or they suffer in silence. That's the thing is, like, no one has to do this by themselves. We are here to help.
When we come back with Stacey Riley, the Chief Executive Officer for Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence, I want to talk a little bit about the process. And one of the things that really compelled me from the last conversations that we had is the real importance that if you know someone or you yourself needs help, the confidentiality engaged in their process is, believe me, that's their, if there's a clarion call or a principle that they practice, is that they can be trusted. They understand the importance of trust. When we come back on the other side, we're going to talk more about that. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have my friend Stacey Riley, who's the Chief Executive Officer for Gulf Coast Center for Nonviolence. They have such a vital role in this community. And we were talking during the break. We're going to come back to this issue of trust, which I think is very, very important that we emphasize this, especially for people who may know someone who may need their services, or you yourself may need their services. And we're going to talk to you about why you should go ahead and make that phone call. But before we do that, I just wanted to bring attention to something. One of the things that Stacey and I were talking about during the break is that I actually can see her. And for people who are watching on Facebook and YouTube and SuperTalk TV, you see that as well. But they're in a beautiful new office. So talk about the changes that have happened in terms of your physical facility since the last time we talked.
Okay, so as I said before, we're always looking for better ways to serve the community, and for many, many, many years, we have been the private location at both either of our shelters, and no one knew the location, and no one had a place to just come to if they need help. So earlier this year, we engaged in a large project that our board and our community worked with us to do. Is we purchased a building here in Biloxi, and this is our community services facility. It's located in a place is not confidential, and it's we're calling it, and we're designing it as our one-stop shop. So anybody who needs help in our community, who can just come up here. We're open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday at this facility. Come in and say, I need help. And that's to help people from having to make all those different phone calls to reach out to get help from various organizations. They come here. We have an advocate that will sit down with them and say, what can we do to help you? How can we remove barriers? How can we help you with getting to the next step? Do you need to go into shelter? Can I get you connected to a counselor? Let's make a phone call to the court to see about your court case. So they can come here and get all that done at one place and not have to feel like they have to do all this stuff on their own. And that's where we are now. We have a building here that's full of advocates that are here to help and to add this extra location in the community, and extra service that people can do, can access.
Yeah, it is an asset. I remember so well in my career when we did building projects or moved into new buildings and sort of modernized the surroundings and so on, that it was a real kick in a positive way for morale. People it makes them feel better. And that's what you experience as well, I'm assuming.
Absolutely. And we designed this building. I mean, the building we have is a former insurance building. And I tell people it's a place that cubicles came to die. So we have a lot of, we put in some blood, sweat, and tears, and all of us pitched in together and designed this building. So when you walk into it, it is beautiful. It is a welcoming place that when someone comes in, they can get help. We have a resource library here that people can come in and get books that can help with some, self-care. We have a computer lab that people can come in and use to, apply for jobs or, take classes, whatever else. So it's that place that people can come to that society knows we're here. We're right here, wide open on Porter Avenue in Biloxi.
That's so cool. Okay, look, I want to make sure we don't miss this one before we run out of time, but if someone needs to make a call, they're worried to death because, I mean, the ramifications of making such a call, if others were to find out about it, could be devastating. So let's talk for a second about trust and making the call.
So we are bound by confidentiality from all different ways. And we know that confidentiality is not, we don't keep it only because it's a legal thing to do. We do it because it's safety. Like if I reveal someone's information here, I'm putting that person in danger. So anybody who reaches out to our facility, there's no way that we report anything. Like even amongst ourselves, it's a need to know basis. So if anyone needs help, they come in here and we don't have to report that information to anyone. Everyone is a person that comes in for help, but no one has to know outside of that. And we take that. Now that goes to our core. Like I'm going to protect you and your information from anyone possible, and any help we do with the individuals that are reaching out to another community organization, we have to have a signed release form. There's no just pick the phone up and call.
So what if someone needs to talk to somebody, what number do they call and where could they go actually if they decided they wanted to drive to your place?
Our crisis line number is 435-1968. That is manned 24/7. If anybody needs help, they can call that number. Doesn't matter what time of day it is. And our location here at our walk-in facility is 213 Porter Avenue.
435-1968. That's area code 228. So it's 228-435. Yeah, 5. Okay.
1968.
Say it again.
1968.
1968. Yeah, I thought when I looked at you, I thought maybe I was saying it wrong. So anyway, that's the number, and know that you can call and that someone will answer, and it's a hotline, and it will help you understand the steps you need to go through to protect yourself. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about setting a course for your life that could put you in a safer situation, and have people working with you who have been there, done that. They understand it. They've seen so many cases. They know how to guide people, don't they, Stacey?
Oh, absolutely. And one last thing I want to say while my time with you is what we're striving for as an agency is to move the needle to show people that it's not focused so much on the ones who are being victimized. It's how can we hold those accountable that are offending others? So if someone that's treating their wife or partner badly, call them on it. Hold that person accountable. Let's talk about how we can end these victimizations in ways we can hold people accountable.
Too often people turn their head away.
Yes.
And that's not the best thing to do always. Believe me, it's not. Stacey Riley for the Center for Nonviolence, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you. We'll have you back on soon.
All right. Thank you. Good seeing you.
You bet. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
All righty.